Hi Heather. So you have an impingement, a shoulder impingement specifically. And what that means is something within your shoulder is getting impinged or pinched. Doesn't mean anything's getting damaged, just something's getting stressed more than what it should be. And that's what causes pain. As we talked about a bit, pain doesn't equal injury, pain doesn't equal damage, pain equals unknown. And your body's like, what's going on? Something's different. I'm feeling some more annoying chemicals, and it tends to be more annoying up over here, so I'm gonna make it hurt when you go up over here and into this position, and then also behind the back position. So pain is a blessing because it's saying, stop doing this for a short-term key, so that I can start to figure out what's going on in this area, heal it, and get you back to doing what you want to do. But your issue is 3 months of coronavirus and rest has only led to decreased ability to do stuff, where this starts to hurt, and now this hurts when it used to just be a lot of aggressive massage, since that's your job. So what does that mean? We take some pain knowledge as well as some movement knowledge, pair them together, and boom, you get better. So in your shoulder specifically, let's look at the movement orthopedic knowledge now. When your shoulder goes up overhead, above 90 degrees specifically, about 100 in flexion and then 90 degrees in abduction, your shoulder blade and your humerus are dancing. They don't dance very well together. They're stepping on each other's toes. And the act of stepping on each other's toes is pinching likely your supraspinatus or your biceps tendon in the anterior front part of your shoulder. And that creates some inflammation. Increased inflammation, it starts to hurt eventually. So what do? Well, why don't we just make those two bones dance better together? So what causes your scapula to stop working properly is length of muscles in the beginning and then strength of muscles as a follow-up. So you stretch a lot, but we need to now get those right muscles stronger. So part one for you is your rotator cuff tendons in the back can pull your scapula prematurely, because it runs from scapula to humerus, can pull your scapula prematurely as you're going up overhead and cause your humerus, this bone, to rotate and pull forward. Seems weird, but arthrokinematics, arth means joint, remember, so joint movement, kinematics movement, joint movement in the joint when it twists actually pulls that humerus and starts to push it forward because of tightness in this position. Now your pecs are a little bit tonic, but not as much as we thought because you have stretched a lot. What the issue is, this shoulder bone, not blade, rounds forward excessively, and that's an issue of compression in the back. So these get bound up and that shoulder bone pops forward. So we exclusively worked on the posterior cuff, and what do you know? Flexion, full range of motion, no pain. Abduction, turn to an arc of pain. So then we went into posterior glide of the humerus. So what does that mean? Your humerus is covered by ligaments as well as covered by muscles, specifically rotator cuff, then covered by bigger muscles, deltoids, etc. So that humerus can be tight in any direction, up, down, or forward, backwards. You're a little bit tight down and you're a little bit tight backwards. Why does that matter? So remember arthrokinematics, when the bone moves inside the joint, as I go into flexion, this humerus has to rotate downwards to stay in socket. If it doesn't stay in socket, it elevates and starts to pinch, and that's where bursitis, bone spurs, supraspinatus tears come from. Same thing happens in abduction. Let's go this way. In abduction, when I start to go into abduction, specifically at 60 degrees, but more importantly at 90 degrees, our humerus needs to rotate downwards to stay in the socket. If that doesn't happen, it starts to bud up, and then we get that pinching again, impingement. Those movements of the joint rotating downwards or rotating backwards is arthrokinematics, and it's limited by your ligaments, what we call your capsule, your shoulder capsule. So that capsule needs to be stretched posteriorly and inferiorly, just like muscles. Ligaments need to be stretched as well. But why, again, are those ligaments or that capsule tight in those directions? It goes back to point one. If our muscles are pulling our humerus into that position, it gets really compressed in the posterior side, the back side, those ligaments are naturally going to bind up and get stiff. So there's two parts for you presently. We're just going to work on part one right now, controlling the muscles, because the muscles have to play into the ligaments as well. But we worked on your ligaments, we stretched, we mobilized that joint, and then flexion, perfect, abduction, just a tiny bit of like a 5-degree arc of pain, which then part three, when I start to move the scapula, working as your muscles should be, pain completely goes away. Tiny bit of pinch at the top because you're a little bit stiff as well, still in the joint. We can significantly improve your joint range of motion actively on your own with just gravity, with posterior cuff length improvement and joint capsule mobility improvement. And then what needs to happen eventually is our scapula needs to start to dance a little bit better. And that specifically for you is serratus anterior, which we didn't cover very much, which we're going to go to in eventually. So as you know, rehab is about a plan, progressing up, 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 because you want to be able to do a lot more than just put on your bra or lift your shoulder blade, lift your hand overhead. You've got to massage, you got to take the luggage out of the container, you got to do all these things that shoulders need to be able to do, and that's all strength, 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 strength. And that was the main thing that we covered. Tightness equals weakness. Muscles get tight when your brain doesn't feel strong, doesn't feel like you can actually do it, so it tightens up those muscles so that it can't go that far. So the stronger we get, the better your range of motion will be. We showed you a pec stretch, pec minor, pec major, median nerve stretch, really opening it up, which you can see right here. And then we showed you an exercise using your rotator cuff using your posterior rotator cuff into flexion, learning how to maintain what we call joint centration. You can see that exercise here. For the stretch, really do as often as you want, but the main thing that you're really thinking about is really focus on that scapula going backwards with your humerus so that it doesn't start to round forward. And this is an oscillation stretch. Because your wrist is bending backwards, it's really tightening that median nerve. Nerves do not like to be stretched for prolonged periods, so you're oscillating back and forth as many times as you want to. Usually say like do 50 in a repetition, in a set, and do as many sets as you want throughout the day. For the rotator cuff strengthening, we want endurance reps, so 2 sets of 15 we're going to start with. Eventually we'll go 3 sets of 15, then we'll bump up the weight, and then we'll bump up the reps eventually. And the goal is, as you're looking at this exercise now, your hand over your elbow and your elbow in front of your shoulder. And that's teaching that rotator cuff to keep that humerus in a nice centrated position while it actually lengthens, so your scapula doesn't pull prematurely and cause that compression on the posterior side, which causes excess lengthening and compression in the front side, which is where your pain is. If you have any questions, let me know, but I'll see you next week, and hopefully this makes sense. I like to record a video for you in the beginning just so we can cover everything that we encompass everything that we covered. Words are hard. So we can encompass everything that we covered, so you can always reference back to this in terms of what is your plan. Part 1, rotator cuff length and strength. Part 2, what was it? Part 2, what was it? Joint capsule mobility, which pairs with part 1 in terms of owning your range of motion of the humerus, so that's strengthening. And then part 3 is scapular coordination and strengthening up overhead. We'll start with body weight, we'll start with gravity weight, and then we'll start with body weight eventually, and then we'll add some resistance in. You're great, it's great to meet you. You got an awesome attitude, and you're gonna have a great journey. The shoulder will probably only take 4 weeks, and then we'll start to progress into more and more strength, so this doesn't ever come back again. If you have any questions, let me know. It's great to see you, great to meet you. Have a good day.